Dynamo Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast. And joining me today is Peter Hart from the Superior Comic Show, my partner in crime on the Upper Tier, brought to you as part of the Dynamo Podcast Network. And today we're bringing a special show to you on a New Year's Eve, where we're going to take a quick look back at some recent results there and the impact it's had on those teams. Certainly the landscape of football has changed over the last 10 to 14 days, no doubt. And we also want to wish all our listeners and subscribers a happy new year. We hope you had a safe Christmas as we stare down into another lockdown now. And be assured we will bring in you lots of really good content over the next 4 to 6 weeks. So keep an eye out for that. We're also on YouTube now. So if you could pop over there, hit a subscribe, hit that bell notification and a like. We appreciate all your support over the last couple of months since the Dynamo Podcast Network released. We look forward to 2021 and bringing you some great content. Peter, how you doing?
All good now, other than the thoughts of this lockdown. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, like, we're going to be shut down, obviously, with the shop and stuff like that. But look, it's an opportunity to do some more podcasting. It's an opportunity to look at other things in a different way. And sure, look, you know, if it gets us to where we need to get to and it gets us to the vaccines and it keeps more people alive, sure, look, we'll embrace it one more time again.
Yeah. 100%. I worry though. I do worry for the smaller businesses, the local businesses like yourself, like some of the barbers and restaurants that this is their third time closing down. And a lot of people are worried.
Yeah, well, I suppose the message there really is if you can shop local and support local and support those small businesses, continue to do that. Over the last few months and over all those lockdowns, we've had great support of people. And we've been thanking people, no doubt, today and in the last few days for the support they've given us. Without that support, we still wouldn't be here. And that's a fact when you talk about small business. It's really important that people continue doing that. And we look forward to it in 2021. We're going to continue with our Facebook orders and our postal orders and all that kind of stuff and support you as best we can. So thank you for that. So moving on to today's show, I suppose based on the last show we did, it was kind of Arteta out, and there was huge issues there, I suppose, with Arsenal at the time.
Yeah.
But they've had, it's amazing what a couple of results can do to you. Arteta is now back. Arsenal are kind of now back, even though they're not firing on all cylinders. But certainly, we're not talking about them in the same guise as relegation anymore, or in a relegation battle. It's a weird league this year because two results can propel you up the league. It's crazy. What you thinking on Arsenal at the moment and Arteta?
They're going in the right direction. They're having, like you said, they're not setting the world alight, but they're making progress. I said in the last show about Arteta that when we were talking, me, yourself, and Ian were talking about it, I said I wouldn't sack him just yet. I'd give him the rest of the season until next January, and it's coming good right now. But the amazing thing to me is it's not their new big money contract signing Aubameyang that's getting them the goals. It's youth, and it's Lacazette seems to have a bit of hunger back now as well.
Yeah, well, I think especially Lacazette was putting himself out there a bit in the shop window as well. So when I seen him getting a bit of game time, I had no doubt he was going to make an impact,
Yeah.
Especially when you're looking at his contract coming up now. I mean, if he's going to make a move, this would probably be his last big contract as well, because he's kind of at that age as well.
Yeah.
I did hear there this morning, Kolasinac has gone to Schalke, is it, on loan?
Schalke?
On loan there. I read that there this morning on Sky Sports News. So that's an interesting move. I didn't think Arsenal would be in a position to be pushing lads out the door, really, you know what I mean? I thought they'd want to be hanging on to what they have at the moment, you know what I mean? Unless they do have plans to bring in people in January now. So
they must have. If they're getting rid of people on loan, especially, they must have plans to bring someone in. But to be fair, your man Kolasinac, since he signed, has been a liability more often than a prized possession.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So then I suppose that's where we're at with Arsenal at the moment. They're grinding out results. They seem to be somewhat back. Those are kind of results they'd normally get draws or losses from.
Yeah.
So It's good to see them coming back up the table again. So I suppose we move on to United. United's what I would call United's rise again. They seem to be coming a bit of a powerhouse again, and that sort of soft underbelly that they had at the start of the season seems to have disappeared. They're grinding out results now when they have to. No doubt they've had a bit of luck, but I mean, every team throughout the whole season gets their luck. But I looked at that match there the other night, the Wolves game, where like they didn't look to be doing anything amazing in the game, but they went into what those fans call Fergie time, and they pulled off another good result with 3 points. And certainly they look out of all the teams there to be the team that's probably going to challenge Liverpool in terms of the league this year, while everyone else is around them is kind of faltering.
I think now, without taking too much, I said it last time on the show. I was on the show. I said United are a worry for me because they're coming back up now. They're stringing results together, and they have been. But again, even with ourselves, I'm saying Liverpool not get too ahead of ourselves. United need to settle. Because I've seen the post about we're going to win the league this year. We're going to stop Liverpool winning the league. The problem I see is they had some great results, but who have they come up against so far? Wolves gave them a game, and they needed that last-minute winner that took a deflection. They haven't come up against anyone in form just yet. And I'll be honest, I think an injury to Bruno Fernandes and their season's over. I think they're on the right track, but I think they need to add and subtract from the team in January if they want to keep this up.
Yeah, I think Bruno Fernandes, no doubt, has been key for them. I mean, he's the talisman there. And then I suppose the news coming out today about Cavani getting suspended for 3 games and fined 100,000 over the racial post on Instagram.
Joke.
Yeah, I think there's probably there's a number of views you could take on it. You know what I mean? It's some fans have been comparing it to Suarez, which I think is a little bit of a push, to be honest. But I wonder how this will impact on United over the next 3 to 4 games, because he's going to be a talisman for them as well. And his link-up play with Bruno and with Pogba has been top-notch in the last few games. And he's been pivotal to them. He scored some of those really important goals for them. And I just think maybe, not having him there might have a little bit of an impact on their results coming up and stuff like that. They've got a big game against Villa on Friday.
Yeah.
And Villa are banging form there as well, and up at the top end of the table as well, fighting. And with Grealish in your team and stuff like that, the only concern I would have is I think Mings is suspended for the game, isn't he? So that would be a concern because he's their talisman at the back. But yeah, they're back up there again, and they are challenging. There's no doubt about it. You always feel around the corner, though, there's a kind of a surprising dodgy result coming that sort of derails them a little bit. But they've certainly been much more consistent, and I would say much more at it than they have been. And certainly it would be a concern. And if they do add to the squad in January, I mean, we know all the names they're going to try and butcher out the door, and trying to find homes for them is difficult at best. But it'll be interesting to see who they do target and who they're going to bring in. The talk I heard going around was that they weren't planning on really bringing anyone in January, but they had identified the usual Jadon Sancho, Jack Grealish, all these guys as big targets for the summer. But whether that happens or not is another thing.
Well, back on what you're saying, I don't think they will bring in January. United aren't usually a team who do bring players in January. They usually wait till the summer unless they're in desperate need. But back on the Cavani thing, United saying to have been given. It seems the ban has dropped in a favourable moment. That the 3 games Cavani will miss, only one of them is going to be a Premier League game. So the only Premier League game he's missing is the one against Villa, and then he's missing the EFL Cup against City, and then the FA Cup against Watford. So he won't be too big of a loss for him.
Okay.
So, conveniently, that ban was dropped at a convenient time for United. Just saying. And I am what you said. I'm one of the fans.
Well, I suppose the other.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. I suppose the other option for them as well is if it. Yeah, go ahead.
I was saying, I am one of those fans that has been comparing it to the Suarez incident. I don't think should he have got as serious a fine and ban as Suarez. Maybe not. 3 games, 8 games would have been too much. 3 games is a joke. Same word, same culture, slightly different context. But I do believe the FA tried to set an example with Suarez, and they haven't stuck to that example since. And they give them 3-game ban, 1 Premier League game, 2 cup games, and basically said, give us all the money you find down the side of your couch as a fine.
Yeah. I suppose, though, when you compare it to the City one, where he only received a single game ban.
Yeah, again.
So I suppose it's I suppose it's a difficult one to call, you know, because we are dealing with different cultures, but that doesn't take away from the fact of what's posted. And they are operating in England in the Premiership, and there's rules around that have to be, you know, adhered to. And these guys are being badly advised. So I would imagine if this drops again from another foreign player, I'd say you'd probably be looking at, you know, 500,000 and probably 6 games. I think what they've done now between Bernardo and between Cavani is they've sent the warning shot now for all other foreign players to say, you know, we've kind of let this slide a bit, even though we've punished you, but be aware, this is the way it's going to be. We'll see what happens anyway. Moving on to both our own team, Liverpool, who for me have had the gate open in the last 2 days to press on, or in the last 2 weeks to press on. All our rivals around us couldn't have treated us any better, really, and we have failed to take advantage of that. We've looked very flat. We have been creating opportunities, but our front three seem to be going through a bit of a dip and a bit of a confidence thing at the moment. I did notice last night in the game last night against Newcastle, once Thiago came on, we were a different monster. There was a bit of creativity there. I thought last night's midfield was a bit slow and kind of delayed things and didn't really service the front three, really. But I think that it was the same. I was very disappointed in the West Brom performance. I thought we could have easily put them to the sword in the first half. But what you're thinking on Liverpool at the moment?
At the minute, they're, like you said, they're frustrating. They're a frustrating team to watch. That midfield, I've seen a lot of people call it the midfield that started last night. The Brexit midfield is what that is. It's just sideways and backwards. And I love the lads, but they only work when they have a midfielder who's willing to press in there with them. Like you said, Thiago came on and it was a different team. But we're the champions. We lost 1 game, 1 or 2 games all last season. We shouldn't need one player that we bought in the summer to come on to change the game for us. That front three, I'm sorry, I love them all to pieces. They've done great things for us. They've gotten cocky and they've gotten complacent, and they're not putting away chances that bleeding Braithwaite over in Barcelona will bleeding eat up for dinner. They've gotten lazy. That's my only opinion. Is they know that they're Jota being injured, they have their positions sorted in the team. Klopp for some reason won't bring in Shaqiri, so they know they can be lazy. They're not going to get replaced.
Yeah, it was strange. It was strange and comparable to the Crystal Palace game where we absolutely put them to the sword, and like we, you know, the team just clicked big time. Now, I think in fairness to last night, I think we created plenty of chances, and on another day, we probably would have put in, you know, 2, 3, 4 goals. It probably would have finished, maybe being fair, 4-2, maybe would probably have been a fair result. But I think at the moment, the subbing, the practice of the subs at the moment is a little bit questionable on the timing. Like bringing on Shaqiri and giving them 4 minutes, really, you know, what's the point, really? You know what I mean? 4 injury time minutes. But I also looked as well, and I was thinking, as good as Fabinho is at the back and centre back, we're really missing him in midfield. Really missing him in midfield, because I think he's the anchor man that allows the likes of Henderson and Gini to go a little bit forward. And I'm thinking when we're playing some of the lower teams or the smaller teams, I think there might be a call there to throw him back in midfield and maybe go with Williams and Nat Phillips at the back. And maybe just try it out, you know, because there's a cutting edge in that midfield at the moment that we normally have that dictates the game, and we're missing it badly at the moment. But it remains to be seen, and we have a couple of big games coming up now. Southampton's going to be a tough one, and then after that we've got a cup game, and then I think it's United. Then isn't it? Is our next game? Then that's going to be a huge game. That United game. I mean, if things pan out the way we think over the next week, that's going to be a big 6-pointer top of the table clash, no doubt about it. So yeah, I think that's kind of Liverpool. Moving on, I suppose, to Chelsea, which is an interesting kind of conundrum. Spent a huge amount of money in the summer, totally backed Frank Lampard, brought in some fantastic talent, no doubt about it. But seem to be struggling in terms of finding the right positions for players, the right tactics. Um, I've spoke many times on this podcast about Giroud being on the bench. I think is a travesty. And again, when I looked at Frank in a couple of the games, he probably could have put Giroud on a lot earlier to put an impact in the game and the ones that he wasn't on. I still think Werner's playing out of position. I don't think that's his position. And I think he's trying to keep a lot of players happy. Kai Havertz, I think, is struggling with the Premiership at the moment, and I think he's struggling with the move from Germany. But I think in time he will become very good. There's no doubt about it.
He's still a kid.
I think
he's still basically a kid.
Absolutely, and I think as well. I think he could do well in the summer by putting on a bit of meat and a bit of beef and beefing himself up a little bit. He's a bit slight, I think, but I think he will become a fantastic player there. But certainly there seems to be pressure on Frank Lampard, and a lot of the pressure is coming from its own fan base. They don't seem to be happy at all. And they seem to be questioning that underbelly mentality that Chelsea are normally known so strong for. Because they normally are known as that strong team to really give most matches a good go. But for some reason they seem a little bit weak. And I mean, when you look at the starting 11, it's drenched in talent from top to bottom. You wouldn't really say there's a lot of weak players in the team. What you thinking on Chelsea at the moment?
Oh, I agree. They've so much talent in that squad, and it's just not gelling together at all. It seems to be a big problem in London. Arsenal fans have finally let up on Arteta, and now the Chelsea fans are going in on Lampard. It's one or the other. One team has to be going through some sort of turmoil. I do think Frank is trying to keep Abraham and Werner happy by playing them both, but he's playing the big money sign and Werner out of position, and for that Werner's struggling, and that's going to show. He's a confidence player. He needs the confidence. If he's not bagging in goals, he's going to dip.
Yeah, I think Werner is absolutely key, and I think he's gonna have to make that decision to switch him into the middle. There's no doubt about it, and he's gonna have to figure out a way. I mean, I was sort of thinking maybe if they went with a 4-4-2 and they played Werner and Giroud up front, you know what I mean? Maybe one off the other or something like that. Because I'm thinking if they played Giroud in that
a 4-4-1-1 kind of thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Ireland used to have with who was it knocking the ball down to Keane for Keane to run onto?
Yeah, the likes of Niall Quinn.
Yeah,
Niall Quinn
exactly.
used to feed him all the time. But I'm thinking if they put Giroud into that pocket there and he was feeding Werner, I think the amount of goals Werner would get would be immense. I don't think there'd be any stopping them.
Werner
I think
is a top striker. He has a Fernando Torres kind of vibe going about him, but he's being played out of position constantly for Tammy Abraham, who is on his day can be incredible, but he's so inconsistent that it's ridiculous. Like you've paid this much money for Werner, play him in the position that you bought him for.
Yeah, well, I think Ian, our partner on the podcast here, who's missing today, he's off busy doing stuff. But I think he would always turn around and say that he feels Tammy Abraham is a little bit light.
Yeah.
I think they were hoping he would be that Drogba-esque type striker, but he certainly doesn't have the strength for a guy of his size. He is tall and stuff like that, but he is quite slight. And a lot of these central defenders in the Premiership at the moment now are quite built, and they've no problem whipping the ball off him. But again, I think that's the conundrum for Frank. I mean, maybe we could argue that maybe they brought in too many players in one window, making up for lost time with the bans.
That could be an argument there. Look what happens with teams. Look at Spurs when they spent the Bale money. How many of them signings actually worked out that they all brought in at the same time? It might be a case of try blood 3 or 4 at a time instead of bringing in 6, 7, 8 and trying to completely overhaul in one season.
Yeah, or come up with some sort of a planned rotation there that sort of keeps everyone happy, but that it seems more structured than more reactionary. Like it seems to be when players aren't too happy there, they're thrown on and they're given a chance and they're going there, now you're happy again type of thing,
Yeah.
rather than it being an actual plan that Frank has come up with to say, right, I'm going to try Giroud, I'm going to try Werner here, I'm going to try something different. Havertz is under pressure. Let's take him out of the picture, build him up his confidence a little bit, and then put him back in and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like I was amazed the other night watching the match how many times the ball fell to N'Golo Kante in the box, who normally to me would be that kind of, he'd nearly be that guy nearly sitting in front of the defense, breaking things up and stuff like that. He's not normally the guy who gets on the end of balls into the box.
No, he's usually a Makaleli kind of player, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and certainly when you have Pulisic, Havertz, Werner, and Giroud, I mean, you don't expect the ball to fall to N'Golo Kante.
No.
But yeah, it's an interesting time for Frank. It's a conundrum. I'm sure he'll figure it out. He's been thrust into this position. It's not easy. He's a young manager as well, but on the flip side between him and Arteta, he's been heavily backed, so he has to try to figure out a way to fix this conundrum and get it working again, and no doubt he will.
Yeah.
Then we move on to let's have a chat about City here, struggling with this whole COVID thing. It's massive outbreak there the other day. Had to shut down their world-class training facility. Number of players were diagnosed. Match was cancelled against Everton. And it seems to be that this new variant strain of the coronavirus that's so contagious seems to be spreading more now. I see the Premiership have said they're going to instigate something like 17 or 1800 tests in the next couple of weeks. And they're going to really go in on it hard and figure out what's going on there, because their track record has been exemplary in terms of the virus when you think about it. Like they haven't really called off many matches. There hasn't been that many positive tests, and they've been clusters where they've been caught pretty quick. But it's certainly a concern for City. Not only that, but if they have these players returning, we know that there is some long-term effects of this coronavirus as well. And we've seen it. I mean, we've seen it with Paul Pogba earlier in the season when he came back after having COVID. He really struggled. He looked like a much weaker Paul Pogba. And it'll be interesting. Your thoughts on that with City players coming back with it?
I'm waiting to see what day Kyle Walker had his Christmas party on, and that's where all these COVID cases are coming from. It's happening all over football. There's certain players, and I just brought up Kyle Walker because he was one from a few months back who got in trouble for breaking COVID rules. Yeah. Too many players aren't taking it seriously. Too many players are breaking the guidelines, and I think that's where it's coming from. It's coming in then to the training facilities, being spread to other players and other players and other players. And I think the issue is the FA are taking it seriously, the clubs are taking it seriously, some players are not taking it seriously, and they're putting everyone else at risk.
Yeah, well, we have seen players flouting the law and stuff like that. I mean, we've seen Willian went off to Dubai or Abu Dhabi or something like that as well at a time when things were kind of on lockdown and shouldn't have been traveling and stuff like that. But it'll be interesting to see how these players come back and how they perform, because in fairness, so far this season, there has been a struggle there for City in terms of performance. Now, they have been missing key players like Aguero, and I know Jesus as well has been struggling as well. But I think if they don't have Aguero as their talisman up there, they do struggle as well. As much as Raheem...
Has he is it just me, or has he just not been the same player for the last, maybe, I know he's had injuries, but for the last year and a half, 2 years, has not been that same player?
I think part of it is, even when he's being fit, I think with the emergence of Jesus and stuff like that, I think he's kind of being messed around a little bit.
Yeah.
I know he's had a couple of matches there, if you look at the tail end of last season, where he was subbed off and stuff like that, and he wasn't impressed at all. He was trying to, the bat toys out with the bat water, really, and I know he's had a couple of head-to-heads with Pep Guardiola, and I think at Man City, if you have a head-to-head with Pep Guardiola, there's probably only be one winner,
Yeah.
But he is, I mean, I suppose you have to understand as well, he is coming close to the end of his career in terms of at that level in the Premiership. And I know it's obviously difficult for a player to, adjust to that fact. Unless you're kind of a Giroud and you embrace it and and so when you do get your chance, you grab it by, both hands, really, you know what I mean? But I know, and you got that Argentinian fire in him as well, you know what I mean? You don't want to accept it, so it must be tough. But on the other hand, again, when he does come on and he does perform and he is their player, he's head and shoulders above anyone in the front line. I mean,
Oh, he's
there's
been
no
probably
comparison between
he's
him
been up there the
him
best
and
strikers in the
Jesus.
world for years now. He's been up there with the Lewandowski's, with
Yeah,
the Benzema's, Suarez's. He's a top
yeah,
quality player, and that's, I mean, it's been sad to see him dip, and it's been sad not to see him on a football pitch, because he's an incredible
yeah,
talent.
absolutely. So we'll see how City come back from this and how they perform. It should be interesting. Should be. I'd imagine they'll still be up there challenging us. Um, I don't see them dropping away that much, and especially with the little bit of inconsistency we have at the moment. Hopefully, we
Yeah.
can resolve that. One thing I didn't put down, I suppose we should talk about Tottenham. It's like they've had sort of games there on a plate, and um, I think looking at their tactics at the moment, they're playing not to lose rather than playing to win.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a strange one, you know what I mean? Because like when you see the way when you see the way Liverpool's results have gone, we've opened the door for a lot of other teams as well. And that's why you see United up in second now, scaling those dizzy heights in the league. But Spurs should have been one of those teams that really took advantage of the results all around them, because Arsenal were struggling, Chelsea were struggling. A lot of teams have been struggling. Even Leicester, to a point, have been struggling a little bit. And yeah, it's just interesting to see how they really haven't taken advantage. And I think there's a frustration within their fan base at the moment with the tactics. They kind of crying out. They want to play really good football because they have the players there to do it.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it, with Son and with Kane and Lamella when he comes on, and Moira and all these players. So there is an attacking force there. But it's Jose again reverting to type again, where it's more important not to lose than it is to win. What's your thoughts on Spurs at the moment?
I think Spurs are suffering from, the fans especially are suffering from something most Liverpool fans suffered from back in, what was it, 07, 08, and then back again in 13, 14, when they came so close to a prize that now all they can think about is why aren't we getting that prize the next year over, if we came so close this year. Us in 08, 09, second in the Premier League by 3 points to United. Then 13, 14, what was it, a point we lost to the title to City by. And it was just,
Yeah.
it's one of them things. It's just, once you get that close as a fan, you're like, okay, if we got that close this year, we fixed the mistakes we made and we should win it next year. Tottenham got to a Champions League final 2 years ago. And let's be honest, they haven't just like flattered anyone. You know what I mean? They haven't like taken their breath away since. Started the season well. Looked like, okay, we're finally building on that Champions League final. This is the Tottenham we want to see. And then all of a sudden they get a nosebleed from being so high up the table, and Jose just wants to run back to his bus. They seem to be afraid to take risks,
Yeah.
and the fans can see that. If you want to win the Premier League, you need to take risks. Look at us with our high line last year that has been found out now, that we have to go back to the drawing board. If you want to win titles, you need to take risks. You can't always just protect the goal. You need to go and score goals as well. And I think Jose is just, I think he's kind of getting a bit of deja vu from being at other clubs where results started to not go his way and fans and the board turned on him immediately. And I think that's his defensive stance, is to go back to not losing rather than to go on to winning.
Yeah, I think. Do you see him? Do you see him delivering a trophy there, in some sort of a trophy there?
The Audi Cup.
Did
in
you
the
see him
summer, maybe.
delivering like a Europa League?
I don't know. Maybe an Audi
Yeah.
Cup.
I don't
or
know. I think. I think they're a good. I think I could see them. I could see them potentially doing a Europa League, or I could potentially see him. I think they might be a good shout for the FA Cup, because I'm thinking at the moment a lot of these top teams, if they're challenging for the league, I think they're going to pan the FA Cup as well. Because I don't see, between COVID and between injuries, between the condensing of the league and stuff like that, I don't see how teams like Liverpool and United and Chelsea and Man City and all can compete in Europe and in the domestic league and in a cup competition.
You
I
might be
just
right.
think it's too much. You're going to have,
Maybe an FA Cup
you
or
know what I mean? I definitely
yeah.
see Liverpool. Yeah, so I think they'll definitely play. I think a lot of these big teams will play the kids, and I think that might be an opportunity there for Spurs to go in there and maybe Jose deliver an FA Cup or maybe a Europa League, as well. Because I think if the likes of United and that are high up in the league and they're challenging for the league come around, say, February and stuff like that, I don't think they'll care about the Europa League. I think they'll know that they might cement the top four so they're back in the Champions League.
Yeah.
And I think their push will really be to try and push, assuming Liverpool and Man City and that in the league title. That's the way I would say the Europa League will become irrelevant.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Maybe FA Cup, Carabao Cup, whatever they call it now, could be on Jose's level with Tottenham right now, because like you said, the big clubs aren't going to take it seriously. And I'm sorry, other than Arsenal maybe and Chelsea the odd year, big clubs don't take them trophies seriously anymore. And that's something I actually wanted to talk to you about for a possibility of a future episode about, especially with the FA Cup about to start, about why these cups just don't mean anything to clubs anymore. And I have a few theories, but I'll get into that on that episode. I'm saving them rants for if we go into that on another episode. But yeah, okay, fair enough. Jose could deliver a Carabao Cup and FA
well,
Cup.
But it'd be interesting, all right. I suppose the big thing for them is financially they're not lucrative enough anymore, and I suppose they don't bring the rewards that they should bring. You know what I mean? Like, I think you'd have a very different FA Cup if the winner was promised a Champions League spot.
Exactly my thoughts.
I think that's the only way you'll bring back what they call the romance of the cup again.
It's like,
other than that, I think it's just
like Liverpool when they were like,
go
we're
ahead.
not moving your Carabao Cup fixture, so you can play in the FIFA Club World Cup. You play the Carabao Cup, it's important. Liverpool like, no, it's not. We'll play the kids. We're gonna go win the Club World Cup. That's more important. It's more financially lucrative. We get a cool little patch at the end of it for our jerseys. Whereas we win the Carabao Cup, what do we get? A year's supply of energy drinks.
Yeah, but it also raised the profile of the Premiership out there in world football as well, to have a team out there representing the league. I mean, United did it before as well, and I'm sure it paid dividends for them back then as well, Anything else you want to add? Anything else going on out there at the moment that you've seen or that we haven't touched on, or some interesting there hasn't been a lot out there. It's kind of been quiet-ish, if you like. I think a lot of teams are in shock at the way some results have gone, and they're waiting to see on the bounce back.
I think as a
this whole COVID is just playing with everything at the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think as a Liverpool fan as well, I know this year we lifted the Premier League trophy, and it was a great first time in 30 years. But when you look back, we won that trophy in 2019. Let's be honest, we had it wrapped up before the end of the year. We have been very inconsistent this calendar year in all of 2020. And I think as a Liverpool fan, I'm happy to see the back of 2020 as a year, heading into 2021, hoping for bring back the intensity, bring back these players, and hopefully go and win the league again. And as much as I hate them, I'm very intrigued with the possibility of a Liverpool United title race again.
Yeah, it should be very interesting. All right. A lot of history there, a lot of rivalry, and having a proper rivalry back again might be the impetus that gets Liverpool firing on all cylinders again, because it's been quite casual for them. You know what I mean? Certainly looking at the 2021, there's a lot of teams need to step up.
Yeah.
They've all been very lax, and I was looking at a prediction table there yesterday, and they were reckoning that about 84 points or 85 points might win the Premiership this year, which is like a very low total. Now I can say it all right, but it's a very, very low total. And I was looking at it and I was thinking, in order for us to do that, looking at it, what is it? Out of the next 22 games, we'd have to get 17 wins, which would be, a decent run to try and put together, really.
Yeah.
When you think about it. So, but yeah, it was an interesting thing. I love looking at some of those, when those computers do those prediction tables out into the final day. And I know some people take it with a pinch of salt and stuff like that, but interesting to see that that's where the thinking is at the moment. But I suppose it's not surprising, really, when you see the amount of teams, top teams, dropping points at the moment to the bottom half of the table teams, really,
It's a lot of draws. There's shock losses going on. Like, we'll never forget the playing 7-0 to Villa, but sorry, 7-2. There's a lot of shock losses, but there's been so many draws this year in the Premier League. I think it took 3 weeks before there was the first draw in the league, and then all of a sudden, just
Yeah,
when it rained, it poured. So many draws.
yeah. It just became contagious, really, didn't
It's
it?
like
And
the COVID
it's
results.
amazing. Yeah, but it's amazing this year as well. Every time the door opens for a team to put a gap in there, that door gets slammed shut with either a draw or a crazy loss
Yeah,
or something like that. Um, so it's just the whole league at the moment is basically fairly inconsistent. But I reckon from January onwards, that's going to get turned up a notch, and you're going to see obviously the cream is going to rise to the top, and the rivalries will be there.
yeah.
Um, any kind of predictions for how you see it panning out on going into the new year? I mean, where are you looking? You're looking really at ourselves and United, is it?
Yeah, I am. I'm keeping my eye on City as well, and I'm keeping my eye on Chelsea because once them players gel, if they just hit the ground running, if Werner starts playing up front and starts banging in goals, Chelsea will climb. Um, and I don't want Chelsea to be like United have been, whereas 1 minute they're down in eighth place and we're not worried about them, and then all of a sudden you blink and they could go level on points with us at the top if they win their game of hand.
Yeah,
I mean, it's very very hard to call. I do think
yeah.
we'll still win it this year. It'll be very close, and I do think United will get top four. I think they might drop off slightly. I think they'll be looking at third place in my opinion, and second and fourth will be between Chelsea and City.
Yeah, interesting. So you don't see anyone kind of new breaking in there, or you don't see Tottenham figuring into the equation at all there,
Leicester,
or so.
Tottenham, Leicester, and Southampton will push. They'll make up the rest of that top seven, eight. But I don't see them pushing the top four. I think the top four is going to be Liverpool, City, United, Chelsea.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on this thing that came out the other day there, where they were potentially looking at a break in the league for 3 to 4 weeks, because of this COVID outbreak and stuff like that. I suppose the pair of us being Liverpool fans, it would suit us down to the ground to get players back
It
in
would,
terms
but
of injury like that.
Gary
But
Neville.
then I wonder would it. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Gary Neville was saying, and I agree with him. If you break the league, take a 3 week break from the league. There's not a break for the players. The players are still going to have to train for at least 2 of those weeks to be fit enough and ready for when it comes back. So it's all it is a match break. They're not stopping players interacting with each other. It's not going to stop anything. It's just a 3 week break would be pointless. If you're going to do a break, do a full month to 2 month long break, or don't do one at all. In my opinion.
Yeah, I think their concern was maybe the fear of the new strain being so contagious
Yeah,
that there might be a fear that it would spread, from club to club, as
yeah,
opposed to being isolated in its own clusters. So I suppose that would be a real concern for them. But I think at times where you have a country on lockdown, the mental health of people, they really need their sports and their football. It would be
yeah.
so detrimental to the fan base.
100%. I was just
Um,
saying there,
so I don't.
sorry to cut across.
Yeah, go ahead.
Might be not a huge story for people who aren't Liverpool fans, but apparently Liverpool just completed the signing of a 16-year-old defender from Celta Vigo, uh, Stefan Basetic. Apparently, he was heavily linked with a move to United, but apparently now Liverpool have secured a late deal from 16 years of age. So looks like we're still buying for the future.
Yeah, I think
That's
we got
great.
we got wind of that last.
Mm,
Yeah, we got wind of that last week, and I'm sure when the detail of the deal comes out,
mm.
I mean, Mike Edwards there is doing an incredible job.
Yeah,
I mean, how he puts some of these deals together and how he financially structures them. I honestly look at it sometimes and I don't know how clubs actually agree to it, but they seem to agree to it. We tend to get top dollar for players that we don't want,
yeah,
and we tend to bring in top players for less than top dollar or some great financial structuring and stuff like that. So the man he's probably as a director in there of football working with Klopp and stuff like that, he's doing an outstanding job in
yeah.
terms of signing players.
Watch him organize
Um,
some sort of swap deal, Origi for Mbappe. Watch the man. I wouldn't put it past the man.
yeah, I think Origi's probably heading to Wolves, isn't it, by
Mm.
the sounds of things? But don't be surprised if we get a Traore or a Neto or something
Yeah,
wrapped up in that deal. Like it's the man just goes into other clubs and he pulls their trousers down and walks off with the crown jewels. Really, you know what I mean? It's amazing. So yeah, I think we've covered everything today.
yeah.
I don't think there's much more to cover. Like I said to everyone, have a safe new year. Keep safe. I know we're on lockdown, but we'll be bringing you plenty of content. And we'll be looking at adding extra episodes on and stuff like that as we cover the transfer window in January, which is not always exciting in the first few weeks, but certainly in the last week, it's really exciting. And I'm sure things will ramp up as players stay in the hunt for the league and, they're challenging and stuff like that. They may want to add players in January, which is unusual compared to other years. So I suppose for myself, the coach, Niall Hogan, and for you, Peter Hart,
Happy New Year.
thanks again and Happy New Year. Talk to you soon.